Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. Put those questions in the comments now. Today, I want to talk about the Real ID that's going to be enforced starting May 7, 2025. Why is this a concern? This is a concern because many people are wondering, once this Real ID is being enforced, what does it mean for their travel? If they're a non-immigrant, if they currently don't have their papers here, if they've already overstayed their visa, what does it mean for you? So first of all, the Real ID is a law that was passed in 2005, but it is now just being enforced, that requires the license in order to get a special type of license that requires people to be able to show at a minimum their proof of their name, proof of address, so two proofs of address, their lawful status, and their social security number. You can show all of that. You get a license with a star on it, and that enables you to enter certain federal facilities like airports. So airports, going through the TSA is one of those that are going to require the Real ID. But this has set off a lot of concern because even if you're here on a current visa, if you're here and you don't have that right now, say you do qualify for it, but you just can't go get it right now. You really are too busy to get to the DMV to get that changed out. What does it mean for you? So what I am going to tell you is that people are still able to travel without this Real ID. There are certain designated identifications that can be used in the place of the Real ID driver's license. So I have a list here that I'm gonna just list out for you. And now the work permit, because that's what I work with every day, so I know for sure the work permit does qualify as an alternative. So if you have a current and valid work permit, then you can use that to travel within the United States or enter federal facilities. Others are if you can't, say you are a U.S. citizen, but you can't get to the DMV. What do you do, right? Because you need to travel, but you can't get to the DMV. Then you can use your U.S. passport or your U.S. passport card, right? So you can travel with those. Hopefully you have it, because a U.S. passport is more expensive than getting a driver's license. But if you have your passport, for example, I have my Real ID, but if I didn't have my Real ID, I'd be able to travel on my passport. Global entry traveler cards. So these are Department of Homeland Security traveler cards like Global Entry, Nexus, Sentry, and FAST. They're special. You have to apply for that specially to get those benefits of getting those travel cards. Department of Defense IDs issued, and even those IDs issued to dependents. Your permanent resident card, so your green card, can be used as well. So you don't necessarily need to have your Real ID. You can have your green card. Border crossing card. So basically tribal, nation, or Indian tribal identifications, so IDs that are federally recognized, and their photo identification. Your foreign passports. So if you're traveling here on your visa, say you're traveling on a visitor's visa and you have your passport, you can still use your passport as an alternative to the Real ID. So you don't need, if you're visiting the US, you do not need to go to the DMV to get a driver's license to be able to, and you probably wouldn't qualify because remember, one of the requirements is you have to have a social security number. The Canadian driver's license is an alternative, transportation worker ID credentials, and the work permit. So as you can see, it's a long list of alternative IDs. I would say if you do have this kind of identification, For example, most immigrants have their, if you're here in the US, you're on an H-1B, H-2B, H-2A, a temporary visa, and you need to travel. You can use your foreign passport. Just make sure that it is current. Make sure your documents are current. So any of these documents, make sure they're current and valid and unexpired, because then you may face some additional hurdles. And if you are concerned about your immigration status, then you definitely need to make sure you take pause, make sure all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted before you do any traveling. You get legal advice about what this means for you. So I hope that helped. I hope that helps. So if you do have your visa, you can travel with your passport, and that should be fine. What all do you need to get the real ID? So different states have different requirements, but generally, you have to prove your identification, so your name. You have to show proof of address, so you have to carry two proofs of address, have your social security number, and you have to show lawful status. So those are some of the main requirements of the real ID. So if your passport is valid but overstay, can you still travel? So I would say that that is definitely a different question for a different category, because it's not I would say travel in general in a case where you've already overstayed is risky given the situation that is happening here. People are at increased risk for detentions. It's happening all over the country, no matter where you are. They over the weekend they just raided a military base. So they raided a military base, arrested a military member's spouse. So it goes to show you that this is happening everywhere. So exposing yourself to vulnerability in the airport with an overstayed visa, I would say if you're gonna face any risk, it's gonna be very high there. So that what you do need to do is get in touch with us, talk to us about what's going on, and let's see if there's a legal option for you to be able to stay here legally and get legal status, so you are able to travel throughout the country without worry. All right. If someone is without their papers, so can they get one? A real ID? No. Lawful status is one of the requirements. So if your passport is valid, well, so answer that. Go ahead, put those questions in the comments. I'm doing questions now. So, and what all do you need to get the real ID? I answered that. Hello there, everybody on Instagram. Hi there on TikTok. Let's see. To contact you should be through email. You go ahead and give us a call. If you scroll to the top of this comment section, you'll see the phone number. You can also DM us on any one of the platforms, including here. So go ahead and DM us if you would like, and we will get in touch with you. We're very easy by phone, by email if you have our email, but we prefer by phone, or you can contact us through the DM. Can I travel with my work permit and social with my number? Can I travel with my work permit and social? So the work permit should be good. You have the work permit, that's a form of identification, and it does list it here as one of the documents that you can use as an alternative to the real ID. Just make sure it's current, it's not unexpired, it's a current. Please, can we still apply for TPS for Cameroon since they're terminated? So I have to look to see what's going on with Cameroon, but if it's terminated, it means that now there's a certain period that you're allowed to apply for TPS. Once that, if they have opted not to renew, they have opted not to continue the TPS, then you wouldn't be able to apply for that, but you would be able to apply within the period, as a period of time that you're given on the TPS. That may be approaching expiration. I'd have to check. My husband filed for my son 17 overstay, did biometrics next, and how long the process. So is your husband a US citizen? If your husband is a US citizen, then your son is 17, right? And if he's the stepfather of your son, a US citizen, then it should be fine. Because obviously you got married to your husband before your son turned 18, which means he qualifies for adjustment of status. So biometrics, usually what comes next is work permit, travel document if you applied for that, and then after that, an interview and then decision. Will passport work? Yes, the passport will work. Thank you so much. How long it take to get receipt number and nowadays? So we're looking at 2 weeks or even 12 weeks right now. Okay. All right. I'm on YouTube, Facebook now. My spouse is abusive, but still wants to file I-130. What you recommend, filing VAWA before I-130 or after? Which is better? So I definitely think at this point, you need to give us a call because we need to talk to you about your particular circumstances, understand what's happening to be able to advise. Now, here's some general information, but get in touch with us because we can give you some insight and also help you here. But for those of you who are going through a similar situation where your spouse is mistreating you, and you're trying to at the same time your spouse is promising to get you papers, and you don't know what to do, right? I know deep down what's happening is you do not trust them. You don't feel safe. You don't feel as if they are going to actually get you through the process because maybe they've failed you in other ways multiple times. And so you sort of know that, yes, they're promising to get you the papers, but their actions are not reflecting that. So you don't trust them. That's a first red flag. Then it's time to consider to apply in a confidential process where that does not involve them. But here's where I say you have to make that decision. You can always switch from an I-130 to a VAWA, but that's stressful. Why is that stressful? Because by the time you're desperately trying to go from an I-130 petition, a marriage-based petition, to a VAWA, it means something probably went wrong, that you're now scrambling to switch the process out. I've seen it time and time again, so I know. And so here's what my warning is to you and those of you who are going through this is if you go the I-130 road and you start out, you don't trust them already. Then you get married, obviously you're still married. You can't apply for VAWA if you're not married, but say then you go ahead and file the papers and then the abuse worsens. Or they go ahead and they start threatening you every minute that they're gonna get you deported. They're gonna go ahead and write a letter to immigration to get them to withdraw the papers. You are on edge the whole time because they're putting you through this psychological torture. And at this point, you have no clue whether you're going to get to the end of this process unscathed, right? So out of desperation, that's when you're changing over. You're dealing with a lot of stress there. And then now we have to deal with immigration, explaining to them, now it has to go to VAWA. Sometimes that takes a while to communicate back and forth on this issue with immigration that can bring another level of stress. Whereas if you see these red flags and you hear my warning, you heed my warning, and you know that, yeah, they're definitely capable of doing all of that, and you go ahead and do VAWA, what that means is you're now applying for a confidential process. Your spouse cannot interfere with that process. You're protected under the law. Your spouse will never know you applied for this. And no matter what they decide to do, all their threats, they want to leave you, they're not going to file the papers for you, oh, they're going to divorce you before they file the papers. Guess what? The whole time you have your case going forward. So no matter what they do, they have no power over you in regards to immigration. That time and time again has been so empowering for my clients, right? Even though the abuse by itself is stressful, what happens is at least they know on the immigration side, they're going to be okay, right? So this is where I say VAWA is better if you're experiencing abuse and you haven't filed the papers yet. VAWA is going to be better because you just jump straight into a confidential process that protects you. And no matter what that spouse decides to do, you know your immigration is going to continue forward. If they divorce you, if they, if they decide to continue to threaten you, if you decide to leave them, which this is there to help you to leave, you decide to get up and leave, you don't have to worry about the immigration side. Okay. So give us a call and let's talk, and we can talk to you about it. Can one overstay if a marriage visa is processed? How many months can one over? Yes, you can overstay. No, okay, I'm not giving anybody any permission to overstay. But here's what I will say. I think the question is saying, can someone who overstays their visa apply for a marriage-based green card? I believe that's what it's saying here. And what I will tell you is, it depends. Are you the spouse of a US citizen? If you're the spouse of a US citizen, absolutely. You can apply even after overstaying the visa, just not a crewman's visa, right? Crewman's visa. And if you overstayed a fiance visa and that fiance visa belonged to somebody else, and now you're trying to marry a different person than your fiance, they will not allow you to adjust status through that marriage-based process. But one can overstay and still apply for their marriage-based green card. Now, if you are the spouse of a green card holder, you cannot overstay, right? You can, no, when I say you can't overstay, you must apply for adjustment of status while you are in lawful status, while you have not overstayed. It may be okay if after you've applied, of course you stay, because this process is taking a year anyway, but you have to show that you applied for your adjustment of status before the overstay occurred. So very important, the distinctions between the two and when is the right time to apply. How long does T receipt notice takes? I'm saying 2 weeks to 12 weeks. We're seeing some backup right now. So I would say 2 weeks to 12 weeks. My spouse is abusive, so I answered that. Hi there. It's nice to see you. I must get my 10-year green card. I just got my 10-year green card. Congratulations. I just got my 10-year green card. It's safe to go to Jamaica now. So that's the number one popular question I'm getting is, can I travel? And what I will say here is, can you travel as a green card holder? Let me tell you, you have the right to travel as a green card holder. However, there are certain times that your risk is going to be higher, and you need to understand those risks. I don't know your circumstances, and I'm not your attorney, and I definitely cannot tell you individually to travel. But what I would say here is, if there's anything in your background, whether it happened 30 years ago, whether it happened yesterday, that involves a criminal offense, you're at an increased risk. If you have left the country for more than 6 months as a green card holder, you're at risk. If you're going from a 2-year to a 10-year, which you are not, because you said you got your 10-year, but if you were going from a 2-year to a 10-year and you're applying for a waiver because your spouse couldn't apply for you, I would say you're at an increased risk. If you were a green card holder, they haven't taken your green card yet, but they've put you in removal proceedings, you're at an increased risk. If any time in the past you've had a removal order, even if you've had your green card, or you've had some form of immigration or criminal violations in the past, even if you think that's long resolved, you're at an increased risk of being targeted, questioned, interrogated, possibly detained for a certain amount of time. So just beware of those increased risks and understand it. But I don't want to tell people to go hide in fear and to not carry on with your lives, especially when you work so hard. You went through so much to get this green card. Now you can't feel secure. But I do want to let you know it's very wise to understand your risk before hopping on a plane or a boat or a ship. I'm so nervous, but I'm being hopeful and positive. I definitely understand. And what did they say? They say bravery is being fearful, but doing it anyway, right? I may be butchering it, but that's the main idea. It We are all human, and we're facing uncertain times. We are facing a lot of changes, right, that are happening very quickly before our eyes. And that naturally is going to make us uncomfortable, nervous, fearful, but it's going through it with intention, going through it, taking action anyway. That is what being brave is about. And ultimately, I tell you, people in this world that have made the history books, that have made great changes in this country and the globe, have done that, right? So you're doing a brave thing by moving forward and being positive and hopeful. So pat yourselves on the back and just know that I admire you for that. How long does T visa receipt notice take? It takes 2 to 12 weeks. Good day. There is any processing of work permit for asylum seekers as of now. So as the last I checked, everything was going forward as normal. You have to get the work permit 6 months after. So you apply at 150 days, and then 30 days later you get your work permit. So 180 days after applying. Now, I notice all of the people are saying, are they still processing this and are they still processing that? I would say this: nothing is on hold, right? Except for the green cards for asylum holders, but nothing has been wiped off the books, and they're not doing these processes again. This is where it's very important, though, to seek legal advice, to understand your rights, to give us a call, because if things here at the office, we're processing mail like crazy, right? We have a mail room, and that mail room is going 24/7 because we continue to get correspondence from USCIS as they continue to process our clients' cases. So it's happening, it's still going. And what I would say is, don't miss out. Get in touch with us and let's talk about how you may qualify. What do you qualify for? Okay. I just got my I-485 approved 4 months ago, and I received another approval letter for a month. Still don't get it. How long should I wait? I would say give them a call. If it was 4 months ago, you still haven't gotten a green card, and I'm noticing a little pattern like that. I myself have had one or two clients that we hadn't gotten their green card, even though they got the approval, and it's time to check. Did they lose it? Did it get sent out? And you just, it's not posted. Did it get sent out or went to the wrong address? Or are they still, is it still in line to be produced? Or is there some administrative issue on the back end? But you need to give them a call. I don't have anything in my background my son filed for me. So you have to make that decision, but always know that decision of whether, knowing the risk, knowing, and keep in mind, I'm not giving legal advice. So this is where it's very important to talk about your particular circumstances. But Marcia, ultimately, it is up to you to decide. But just keep it in mind that you should always get legal advice. Why USCIS asked for biometrics again after 10 years only for my kids? So I'm not sure. That's very strange if they ask for biometrics after 10 years. Now, what may have happened is it may be related to the registration. And if you didn't register, I don't know, but kids who came into the country who were under the age of 14 and may not have had a biometrics, they might be collecting those, but I don't know what context you're talking about. Why do some people not get bona fide determination for TVs? A great question. So some people right now, what's happening is those who applied after August 28th, they're prioritizing them for bona fide determination letters, and they still run their background. So if there's anything in their background of concern, and I've been hearing from colleagues, some people, they may have, had a very small issue in their background, like maybe a past removal order that has maybe been resolved. They will not get the bona fide. They'll get a denial letter for the bona fides. And then those who applied before, I believe, August 28th, 2024, those are only getting bona fides if they issue a request for evidence. So they're basically trying to make final decisions on those first before they determine whether they're going to issue a bona fide determination letter. So Samantha, this is a personal issue, and you should definitely contact the firm individually. But keep in mind that if you've spoken to our attorneys and our attorneys have talked to you, they work very closely with me. The same thing you're going to hear from my attorneys here at the law firm, you're going to hear from me. So if you have further questions, definitely give us a call, and we can talk about it, or the staff can talk about it. I have a marriage-based green card interview coming up, but I can't find the original copy of my birth certificate. I only have a PDF copy. What should I do? So very rarely do they ask, but now here's the nerve-wracking thing is that you might not take that one document, and for some reason the officer needs to see your birth certificate. That might be the risk there. When going into multiple interviews, they rarely ask for the original unless they have doubts about its authenticity. So that's where, if you can't get your original birth certificate in time, I sort of think it's out of your control to get it. It depends on how long your country can take to send it to you. You can order one through your country, but then you have to go figure out how to do that. I would do that. I would order all your originals. Let me tell you where they are strict about that: at the embassy. At the embassy, you absolutely have to have your original documents. At the interviews here, yes, you have to have your originals, but it's rarely that they do ask for it, because they already have a copy in the file. But if you can order it, and before the interview, if you have time, if you can expedite it so you have it. So go ahead and give us a call. Give us a call, and we'll talk, okay? Give us a call, and we'll talk through your reservations. How does the bona fide determination how does the bona fide determination letter help in getting jobs? Should I get one? Are you a lawyer? Yes, I'm a lawyer. No. The bona fide determination letter does not authorize you to work. That's one. So it is there for protection against a removal. It helps to give you that reassurance so that they're not it lessens your risk of being detained, offers protections, and at the state level, it can help you to be able to get certain benefits that you may need to support you, like, food assistance, medical assistance. So it's not there for you to get a job. All right, so let me answer some more questions on Instagram, and then I'm going to go back to TikTok. All right, so let's see. I don't see any more questions. Go ahead, put your questions in the comment. How long does a waiver take to get a response? So if to get a decision, now, are you talking about the I-751 waiver? Going from a 2-year to a 10-year green card, and you have to apply for a divorce waiver or based on abuse. What I would say here is, if it takes about 2 to 4 years to be adjudicated. If you're talking about a waiver like an inadmissibility waiver, 2 years. What is the timeline if somebody applied for an I-485 from 6 months ago? So I'd say at minimum 12 months. Do you need real ID if you have a passport? If you have a passport, a valid current passport, that should be an alternative. I had a dismissed domestic violence charge in 2019. I became a 10-year green card holder in 2024. Can I travel? It was a clean dismissal. I would say anything to do with criminal, it's very risky. Get legal advice for sure. Because anything to do with criminal, we'd have to evaluate it very carefully to determine, because people are saying they got their case expunged, and they're still being held at the airport. So be very, very careful. I recently got married and would like your help to get papers. So go ahead, give us a call. We are here for that. Absolutely. Congratulations. Blessings and respect. Thank you. Same to you. Please, if I'm on adjustment of status, just done my biometrics, will I be able to travel to other state? Travel is risky just by applying for an adjustment of status. If you have your work permit, you can use your work permit, but just keep those risks in mind. How long can I be outside of the country with green card? Can I travel multiple times in a year? You can travel multiple times, but just try to make sure that you're not traveling, in excess of 6 months in a year, because then they can take that 6 months being outside of the country, they can take that as abandonment of your status. Can a paralegal do an adjustment of status? I would not recommend that. How much? Now, paralegals under the advisement of an attorney, and it's in the attorney's actually filing it, but the paralegal is assisting. I mean, I have an entire team ST Law Office has a very large team, and that's what helps us to get the cases moving along. I couldn't do this on my own, and I have an excellent team of paralegals, of attorneys, of legal assistants, and individuals that are all there to help with each part of the process. But a paralegal who has like a sign that says immigration services, I would not. I've seen the messes that can happen from that. I would not recommend it, especially now. So if your passport is valid but overstay, so I answered that. All right. So how long it take for a work visa after 180 days? So it depends on what kind of work visa you're applying for. Can you process DV lottery green card in the US with a pending asylum? So this one is unlikely. It's unlikely unless you are maintaining legal status with a pending asylum. But if you're not, it's unlikely you can. 8 to 12 months. And can I apply for NIW while that's a national interest waiver while I'm in asylum pending, but don't visa, J1 visa expired? Give us a call and let's talk about this. What I would say is it sounds like you can always apply for an I-140. That's just a petition. But what happens when it's time to apply for the adjustment of status? That's the question. Because if you're applying for asylum, you can't leave the country to go to your interview. You'd have to go to maybe a different country. So we'd have to talk to you for sure. Because one thing to keep in mind is one can always file a national interest waiver petition. Anybody can file a petition. The petition is not what is going to get you the green card. The petition is the first stage of the green card process, but you have to pass the final stage of the process, and that's the adjustment of status phase. If you can't qualify for that, you're not going to get to the green card. So that's where you need to see if you qualify for that. I did my March interview, got approved, but I-45 is pending when that approved too. So they may be scheduling an interview, or they may be processing. They may send you a request for more evidence for your medical. So it depends on what's pending for the I-45. How long it take after 180 days for EAD work visa to come? So it depends on what you've applied for the work permit from. If you applied for VAWA, for example, it could be another 6 months. It's really, the range is 6 to 12 months. If you applied for marriage base, 3 to 6 months. How long to get I-751 removal of conditions received from immigration? 2 to 4 years, but you do get a 4-year extension. I did my marriage, so I answered that. What is the petty offense exemption for citizenship? I'm confused. So with that, there is an exception. So if you were convicted for an offense and then you can show that was, I'd have to brush up on that, but if it was an offense that was, I believe, a misdemeanor, and you were only convicted of one offense, then you may be able to get an exception from the good moral character, lacking good moral character. So it depends, though. I would have to look at the criminal conduct. So that's where we definitely have to look at your criminal conduct to determine whether it falls under the petty offense exemption, because it's very specific about what kind of crime, how many times, depending, do you have to serve time? It looks at that. So we'd have to look at your offense and then look to see if it falls under the petty offense exemption or exception, and then make that argument in a citizenship. So this is where one has a criminal offense in their background, but they can argue that it shouldn't be held against them because they fall under the petty offense exception. If that is successfully argued and they do meet that, then they can still move forward and get citizenship. If someone recently lost their residency card, how long does it take to receive a replacement? A year and a half. It's really frustrating. Any feedback on I-751 petitions you may have? I will submit soon. Time frame, getting interviewed, get representation. It's 2 to 4 years. And yes, under this administration, you can say. Now, I see somebody who is soliciting people in the chat. Please be wary, guys, of people doing that, because they could be a scammer. So please do not. I don't want anybody to be, the victims of scammers on account of this live. So just be careful about that. I mean, anybody coming on to my chat and soliciting people is probably not a good sign. I just joined and want to know how much is a consultation. It's $150. And what we do is we start with an initial evaluation. That evaluation helps us to not waste your time and money by telling you whether we can help you, right? So we go through an initial evaluation. It's free, and that tells us, yes, whether you qualify for an option we can help you with, and then we move forward. So you don't have anything to lose. How long is it taking for I-45 after I-140 approval? So I would say 6 to 12 months. Can I get back your number, please? So look at the bottom of the screen and you'll see the number going across the screen. That's definitely our number. And that's definitely how you're going to know you're calling us. So it's 561-405-4889. You call that number, it's not a scam. You have us. You are in touch with us. So Samantha, go ahead, call and verify whether it's us, and we'll tell you. So the number is going across the screen. Anybody who wants to call, get started on a free initial evaluation, do that right now. Now it's after 5, so we are working now to get people who can do these initial evaluations 24/7, so stay tuned for that. I believe after May 1st, we will have the ability to do evaluations 24/7. But in the meantime, go ahead, give us a call. We have receptionists who answer the phones 24/7, and they will definitely be able to help you and let you know when we'll do the free initial evaluation, which usually probably is going to be, if it's after hours, the next business day. Okay, what if you're a minor? Should I get one thing? So minors are exempted from the Real ID. It's 18 or over. People who are 18 or over are required. Do you live in the ATL? No, but we do represent clients in all 50 states and the globe. So no matter where you are, we can help. I did my marriage interview and got it approved, but I-45 pending. When that approved? So if you did the marriage-based interview, they usually approve the I-45. So I don't know if they're hung up on something, a detail maybe. So you have to get in touch with them directly. But I know it's unusual for for them not to just approve the I-45. Sometimes if they're missing something, though, you might hear from them about that. What if the person came through the border? Would that be possible to apply for adjustment of status? It depends on how. Were they granted parole, as in processed at the border, or if they came across the border without permission, adjustment of status is not usually possible unless they're applying based on VAWA or based on, basically based on VAWA. So, and that is only if you've been mistreated by a certain U.S. citizen or permanent resident relative. So this is where, guys, it's very important. If you have these very specific questions, it's time to do the initial evaluation to see how we can help. VAWA approved December, NBC requested medical. How long after will I get a decision on a green card? So I've seen it about 2 to 4 months after. Marriage-based adjustment of status interview coming up that my husband qualified for sponsoring me and my 3 kids. Last year, he took a lot of time off to care for his ill mother, affecting his income. Can we add a co-sponsor in the middle of the process? Yes, you need to have that. No, I'm not your attorney and I cannot give you personalized legal advice, but what we've done in cases like that is if you have that interview, you need to make sure you have that co-sponsor I-864 ready. Because they will either they're gonna give you a 4-month delay, send you a request for evidence, give you a chance to submit it, and all of that is going to be more frustrating versus having that document ready and providing it to the office. If you know your spouse will not meet the income requirement, then you definitely want to make sure you have it ready to provide the officer so that they can make a quick decision. All right, let me see. That's gonna be it from me today. Go ahead, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, because that is how other people get this information that can help empower them. Okay, so I can't resist a VAWA question. So I just saw one. Can I do VAWA self-petition in C11 category? You can do it for me. So here's the thing. Never, if you put the wrong category on your work permit, you will wait 1 year for that work permit and then get denied, which is really frustrating. So you need to make sure you are using the right category on the work permit. So this is where I say definitely give us a call. We can do this for you. Absolutely. My sister filed I-130 for me, and I'm here on visitor's visa with a family. Can I stay permanently? It's unlikely. So if you're thinking to stay just based on an I-130, based for your sister, it's not going to work because you have to maintain your status until it's time to file an adjustment of status. The thing about the sibling, filing for the sibling, is it's at minimum a 14-year process. In some countries, it's over 2 decades, which means you would have to maintain your temporary status for 20 years before you're able to apply for adjustment of status. The thing about it is there's no visitor visa on earth that can last 20 years. So I would say in this case, unfortunately, you're you will not be able to stay and apply for your green card just based on an I-130 petition. Married outside the US to a US citizen, can I travel back and forth during filing papers? Another good question. You would be at an increased risk because the pattern here is, well, if you got married and I've seen since January, people have been turned around. So they've been stripped of their visa, turned around because of this, where they found you got married in the US and now you're traveling back to see your spouse. Sometimes the officer can construe that as intent to stay permanently, and they may decide that based on immigrant intent, they're going to turn you around. So you are at an increased risk. I'm not saying they'll do that to everybody. Some people know, but for the most part, I would say not even the most part. Not a majority of people will face this, but you're at an increased risk. And under this administration, I would definitely say it's more likely than even before that could happen. So I have military parole. Can I travel to the United States? So with military parole in place, you have to be in the US. To have parole, you have to be in the US. So I'm not sure what that means. Thanks so much for the gifts, everybody. Do you have a free consultation, Ms. Sharifa? So we have the next best thing, which is a free initial evaluation. And the reason we do this is because we don't want to waste your time and money. I know a lot of people call and they say, can you help with this? And what we do is say, we're going to ask you some questions to see if we can help you. Because sometimes people call and they have one thing in mind and they qualify for something else, right? So we ask them questions, and that helps us to determine whether you qualify for something we can help you with. Once you do, then we start a strategy session where we once again confirm you qualify. The attorneys, so my attorneys here at SC Law Office, I work very closely with them, so you should be comfortable talking to them. And my attorneys here are very compassionate, just like me, and passionate about this work, right? They are killing it. They're working hard. And my team is on a whole, they really push like me to make sure our clients are good. But that is going to be where you're going to get the legal advice from the attorneys, and the fee would be $150. But you would not be going into that, with not knowing. You will at least know that there seems to be something you qualify for, and we want to talk to you about it. So we want to dig further, and we give you an opportunity to ask questions too. VAWA won't communicate with the husband, correct? I read about it or something. Absolutely correct. They're not allowed to under the law. There are privacy laws. They cannot talk to the spouse. It's best to not even tell the spouse you're applying separately. Don't even tell them. It's complete. When I work with my clients, it's a complete secret. Please would like to know if asylee can still apply for a green card despite the current situation. So even though it's on pause, definitely move forward with preparing your application. I'm pretty sure we're going to have lawsuits soon on this to determine whether this is even permissible, this action that the president has taken, because what he's really doing is putting a hold on relief that's available under the law. So I would say keep pushing forward. Give us a call. Let's see if you qualify, and we will figure our way forward. Is it okay for green card holders to travel outside even with no criminal records? So I've answered this before. I've answered this a million times before, actually. And I would say this: it's your right to travel, but just make sure that you understand the risk. And if you are at an increased risk, maybe not criminal, but is there anything else in your background that raises the risk? And if you're really in doubt or concern, talk to an immigration attorney. What is the likelihood of the I-134A being approved? It's been pending for 2 years. So I think this is let me just quickly look. If this is based on the sponsorship of relatives, let me just look here and verify. Because if it's based on a parole program for certain sponsors here to apply for acquaintances, relatives to come to the United States, I would say that's pretty much dead right now. Yeah, so this is one of the parole programs, and it's basically terminated by this administration. So if you've had it pending, you can't depend on it. It's terminated. So this was a special parole program. I'm on adjustment of status, just on biometrics. Will I be able to travel to the other states? Having an adjustment of status alone isn't going to do that. So, Marie, give us a call. Give us a call back again, or DM us. So go ahead and send. If you can't DM us, because I think if you're YouTube, go ahead and give us a call again. The number is going across the screen, and we'll definitely make sure we get back in touch with you. That's very rare that we don't call back. So definitely give us a call and we want to know what happened. Yeah. All right. So I'm so glad that I was able to connect with you today. Thanks, everybody, and have a great night. If you need to contact us, go ahead and do that. Also, go ahead and go to the link in the profile to get in touch with us as well. There's a website. So go ahead, contact us so we can talk to you individually, do an initial evaluation, and get started. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That is exactly how others get to see this information, and also how we empower other people through this information. So just make sure you do that. And it also allows you to get notification when I'm live, so that when I'm on, if you're available, you can hop on as well. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Bye bye.